true blue, don't say you've gone. Say you've knocked off for a smoker and you'll be back later on. Hey, true blue. Hey, true blue. Give it to me straight, face to face. Are you really disappearing? Just another dying race. Hey, true blue. True blue. Is it me and you? Is it mom and dad? Is it a cockatoo? Is it standing by your mate when he's in a fight? Or will she be right? True blue, I'm asking you. Hey, true blue, can you bear the load? Will you tie it up with wire just to keep the show on the road? Hey, true blue. Hey, true blue. And be fading. Is your heart still there? If they sell us out like sponge cake, do you really care? Hey, true blue. True blue. Is it me and you? Is it mom and dad? Is it a cockatoo? Is it standing by your mate when she's in a fight? Or will she be right? True blue, I'm asking you. Is it me and you? Is it mom and dad? Is it a cockatoo? Is it standing by your mate when he's in a fight? Or will she be right? True blue.
Please be seated. Good afternoon, family and friends. My name is Margie Rankin, and as a celebrant, I have the privilege of officiating and welcoming you here today, and to those viewing via the live stream, to celebrate the life of Garry John Richey. I'd like to take this opportunity to express my condolences to Garry's family, his sons and daughters-in-law, Paul and Alana, Jason and Amanda, the many grandchildren, too many to mention, I believe, to Garry's sister and brother-in-law, Joy and Ted, niece and nephew, Carolyn and Craig, Please accept my sincerest condolences. Sadly, Garry's brother Dennis passed away in early childhood, and Garry's wife Anne also passed away in December 2019. Today we are celebrating the life of a man who was a husband, father, grandfather, great-grandfather, sister and sister-in-law, and brother-in-law, mate and a hard worker. Garry was born in Carlton, Victoria on the 20th of December 1946 to parents William and Dorothy, who have both predeceased their son. Early years were spent in Victoria and Burnie in Tasmania. Garry loved his sports at a young age, particularly cricket, later becoming a lounge lizard as his health deteriorated when he was in his 50s after suffering heart problems. During his working life, however, Garry was a sales representative for building materials. The family eventually moved to Bandara, and in 2020, Garry moved on to Tamworth following the passing of his wife. It was here in Tamworth he was secretary to Zone 3 Lawn Bowls and took an active interest in bowls. I asked Paul and Jason who their father was. This question is always a difficult one for most to answer when put on the spot. However, both sons told me their father's personality was easygoing, always tried to please everyone, and could talk to anyone about any genre of sporting activity. Garry was an avid Balmain Tigers supporter, and his instructions regarding his funeral was that it was to be light-hearted, and so we'll attempt to grant that wish. Unfortunately, Garry's heart got the better of him, where he spent the final 2 weeks in Tamworth Hospital before passing on the 7th of December, just short of his 76th birthday. I'd now like to invite Garry's son Jason to come forward to deliver the eulogy on behalf of the family.
Good afternoon. I'm speaking today on behalf of both my brother Paul and myself. Dad had asked that today be as light-hearted as possible, so I'll do my best to fulfil that wish. These past 3 weeks have been an extremely tough time in our life, with Dad drifting into a peaceful sleep last Tuesday and taking his final breath on Wednesday morning. I'm so glad the service could be live streamed today, as I was meant to be auditioning for the Sit Down Comedy Club, but they've accepted my live stream as my audition. So here we go. Garry John Richey, Dad, was born in Carlton, Victoria in 1946. An early Christmas present for parents William and Dorothy. Dad later became the older sibling to Joy and Dennis. In 1968, Dad married June, and together they had 2 children, Paul and myself. Dad was born at a time when Clement Attlee was the British Prime Minister and Ben Chifley was the Australian Prime Minister. The most popular song played on the wireless was Prisoner of Love by Perry Como. Interestingly, as I researched this for the eulogy, I came across the most popular song in the year that Dad's wife Anne was born, was Over the Rainbow, the song we chose for the final song today. From as early as I can remember, Dad was always a hard worker, and from an early age worked in various jobs, predominantly in management roles in hardware sales, until he retired due to health reasons in 2000. I believe Paul and I both got our work ethic from Dad, and I've tried to also instil this in my children. One of my early memories of family time with Dad, before the F3, was spending hours upon hours in the car on the old Pacific Highway at Christmas time to visit Grandma and Granddad. A little later in my early teens, I used to spend family time with Dad on a Saturday morning when he'd take me to work with him. Some of those tasks that he'd asked us to perform would certainly be frowned upon by work cover these days, like standing on a pallet, no harness or safety cage, on a forklift, extended to the maximum setting while trimming the trees at the front of the offices. And if it wasn't high enough, they'd just stack a few more pallets on top. In the early 80s, after separating with Mum, Dad moved to the Central Coast, where his parents were living, and also his sister Joy and her family. Dad was working at MLM at Erina, where he met Anne. A relationship blossomed, and they married in 1984. Whilst Anne never had any children of her own, Paul and I became her sons, and she was a very loving mother, and later in life, a loving grandmother and great-grandmother of our children before her passing in 2019, aged 80. Dad was passionate about many things, especially all sports. His love of lawn bowls as a bowler, umpire, and later administrator certainly displayed this passion. He loved the mighty Balmain Tigers and loved to rub it into me when they beat the Bunnies. Dad enjoyed having a drink while playing the pokies and spent many hours hitting the buttons chasing one more win. I have it on good authority that North Tamworth Bowling Club is in serious financial difficulty following Dad's passing, as poker machine revenue has plummeted. Dad was a bit of a practical joker and enjoyed a laugh. I'm sure Dad was only joking when as a child he ripped the arms off Joy's teddy bear. Joy told me last week she's almost ready to forgive him for this. Going through Dad's belongings after his passing was a tough time for both Paul and I, although it was a time to support each other and build on our brotherly bond. I did find some interesting things. One of them was a recipe for banana bread. I can only share this with you one-on-one later. I wanted to prepare some for afternoon tea, but I'm finding it impossible to find a fur-lined mixing bowl. Dad shared his passion of food with Paul and I. He taught us cooking skills. No one could crucify food on a barbecue like Dad. Dad's signature dish was, of course, his baked dinner, cooked in the electric fry pan. Meat, veggies, gravy, all in the one pan. Another item I found in Dad's belongings was a handwritten copy of Footprints in the Sand. It had been a long time since I'd read this, and it reminded me that in his toughest times, not only was he not alone, but God carried him and helped him through those times. Dad spent his last 2 weeks in ICU. I visited most days after he was admitted and spent his final hours and indeed final moments with him. Anyone who spent hours in an ICU ward would know it's not a real exciting place, and the only real food options are the vending machines. Of course, Tamworth has the upmarket vending machines, and the tuna and crackers aren't that bad. During my visits, Dad would buzz the nurse, and they'd arrive quickly and ask, "You okay, Garry?" He'd shake his head and say, "I think I had an accident." The nurses were lovely and would check him out and reassure him that it was fine and it must have been just a bit of wind. I don't think he ever realised the wind was from me. My lasting memories of Dad are simple. A hard-working, passionate figure of strength who never waned in his support of close friends and family, who soldiered on even when times were tough. It's a great privilege to write this eulogy and express the sadness that all of us share over his passing. Dad wouldn't want us to be sad at his passing. He'd want us to celebrate his life and help out your local club by investing in the poker machines for him. Although we may not have said it often enough, Paul and I love you, Dad. Goodbye, old mate.
Thanks, Jason. Gary's sister Joy has penned a tribute, which will be delivered by her husband Ted. So I invite you to come forward now, please.
Joy asked me to do this, and I thought, oh, do I really want to? Oh dear. But I can't help myself. Garry was on the last day of his life, was the most courageous person I've ever met. I wouldn't have the courage to be able to sit and discuss my final ending with the doctors and the nurses and my son and the other son on the phone, and Joy listening. They're saying, well, I've had enough. I've just had enough. So here I go reading Joy's letter. And he said, my dear big brother put up a great fight, which he did, but lost the battle and was so brave to the end. Since Anne's passing away 3 years ago, Garry had to learn to care for himself. She was a wonderful carer. To say that he was lost without her is understatement. He missed her and was lonely. Garry and I had a wonderful brother-sister relationship, particularly since we lost our dear mother. We spoke regularly, and since Anne's passing every day at 5:30 on Messenger. I tried to encourage him to look after himself and check that he was eating well. He loved Chinese, that's the only thing I could add to that. I had a good feed of that a lot. Garry had several trips to Dubbo in the last 3 years, and we really enjoyed his visits. I was blessed to have him as my big brother. I loved him, and will miss him every day, particularly at 5:30. It'll take a long time not to grab the laptop and get ready to call. And she's written here, P.S. I now forgive you after many years for ripping the arms off my teddy bear. Just a little joke. And she wanted to say to Chesty for being there for him and being a great mate. And he will be sadly missed. And he wouldn't want it to be sad. Okay?
Thanks, Ted. And Joy. I'd now like to invite Greg Wilkins to come forward to deliver the bowler's tribute on behalf of Garry's bowling fraternity.
Firstly, I'd like to thank Jason and Paul for asking me to do this little job, because Garry's been involved with our bowling association here in Zone 3 for a number of years, and it's indeed a pleasure to give you a little rundown of what I know about Garry. What I didn't know about Garry when he moved to Inverell, I think it was about 2009, I didn't know his bowling ability, and I didn't know where he'd played bowls or what his achievements were. But anyway, it didn't take Garry long when he moved to Inverell, when he joined the Inverell East Bowling Club, which is now known today as Inverell Sporties. Garry became involved in representing the club, in playing with the Pennants, and also in the district championships. And one of the big achievements was, I believe, in 2011, Inverell East represented the number 2 pennant in the state finals at Dubbo, and that was Garry's first pennant season, and was playing in the second in the team in the number 2 pennant at the state championships. But unfortunately they didn't go on to win that event, but they all had a great time. Garry then, after a little time, got involved in the men's bowling club section of the Inverell East, or the Inverell Sporties, and he served on the committee, and then didn't take him long, and he was acted as their secretary, and then went on to be the treasurer as well. So he held the 2 positions in the club on the men's bowling side. He remained a member at Inverell Sporties until he moved to Bundarra, and that was in 2016, I believe. And when he moved to Bundarra, he thought that Inverell was a little bit too far away, so there was a bowling club at Tinga, and that's where Garry joined at Tinga, because there were a number of guys at Bundarra that were members at Tinga, so it all worked in well. They pooled together and travelled backwards and forwards. So at Tinga, Garry again took part in their activities at the club championships, and also in their pennant side, and was involved there on the committee, and was secretary for 3 years, and until he moved on to Tamworth, and I think that was in 2020 when he moved into Tamworth, and he remained a member until 2021 in July, when he transferred to the Tamworth Club. Garry's involvement at club level from the time he whilst in Inverell just wasn't enough for him, so he had to become involved in back in those days, known as the Guida District Bowling Association. And in 2013, November 2013, Garry was elected to Secretary of the Guida District. And then at the AGM in November 2016, the outgoing Treasurer was moving away, and so Garry put up his hand and took on the role of Secretary-Treasurer for the Guida District. And Garry held that position until the Guida District Bowling Association dissolved in 2019. The reason it dissolved was because of the districts within Zone 3 were all dissolved and becoming a Zone 3, going a zone alone. But so then Garry sort of run out of things to do. In December 2018, Garry was elected to Secretary of Zone 3 and held that position in the zone until November 2021, which is just 12 months ago, when he decided that he should retire, and health wasn't all his best at the time. Garry was certainly honoured by everywhere he went, to all the clubs within the zone, and in his later times when he wasn't playing bowls, he would tag along as a spectator for the day. Not that he watched too many bowls, but anyway, he was there. But and during the times, especially was at Tinga and so forth, he got the nickname Glitter. Garry Glitter was his nickname for the bowls that he had. They were a bit sparkly, so he got the name Glitter. But on behalf, and I apologise today for our Zone 3 President, Rob Key, who was unable to be with us due to illness, and also to our Zone 3 patron, Kevin Clifton. they do send their condolences to the family, and on behalf of everyone in the bowling fraternity in Zone 3, we will certainly miss Garry, not only as a great man and served his position with the zone, but also a great mate, and he will be missed. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg. Gary's niece Carolyn would now like to deliver a reading. So I invite you, Carolyn, to come forward, please. You've got it there.
A reading from 2 Corinthians 13, 11 to 14. Finally, brothers and sisters, rejoice. Strive for full restoration. Encourage one another. Be of one mind and live in peace. And the God of love and peace will be with you. Greet one another with a holy kiss. All God's people here send their greetings. May the grace of the Lord Jesus Christ and the love of God and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with you all. Thank you.
Family and friends, let us take a few moments now to reflect on Gary's life and remember the good times you enjoyed in his company. We'll do that now as we listen to Tears in Heaven by Eric Clapton.
You know my name. If I saw you in heaven, would it be the same? If I saw you in heaven, I must be strong. And carry on, 'cause I know I don't belong here in heaven. Would you hold my hand if I saw you in heaven? Would you help me stand if I saw you in heaven? I'll find my way was be strong and carry on, 'cause I know I don't belong here in heaven.
I invite you to join with me now, if you wish, in saying the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Family would like me to thank you, those who have been here to attend in person and those who are viewing via live stream, for your thoughts, phone calls and messages. In appreciation, you are invited to join Paul and Jason at the North Tamworth Bowling Club in Blythe Street following the service. This is a wonderful time to share your stories and memories with each other. And I believe Garry is shouting the beer with the $6 found in his wallet at the hospital. It should be one sip each, I think. So family and friends, it is now that difficult part of our time together when we must say goodbye to Garry and release him to the next part of his journey. We have our time on this earth, loving, laughing and living. And then it is time to leave, to say goodbye. It is a part of the natural and normal cycle of life and death. Today we have acknowledged our appreciation of the privilege of sharing in a part of Garry's life. Even though his death has meant a physical break in the links of the chain that binds you to each other, the influence and effect of Garry's life is still evident as we speak his name. I now invite those who are comfortable to do so to please stand for our words of farewell. Garry, the blessings, the difficulties, the joys, the challenges, the creating, the work, the love, the giving and the receiving, all have run their course. Your work is finished and your reward awaits you. You are now free to meet with your Anne and other members of your family and friends who have gone before you. Garry, you are now at rest. We thank you for all that you have brought to the lives of your family and friends who have known and loved you. Garry John Richey, may you rest in eternal peace. Family and friends, Garry's spirit has moved on, and we do not have the insight to know all that that state actually involves. But his body, which for the past 75 years housed his soul, has finished its purpose. So remember, if you cared for him less, if he had been less worth caring for, then the road would not be as heavy going. Joy has to be paid for, and sorrow is the price of love. If we never allowed ourselves to care for anyone, then there would be no such thing as sorrow. And grief only comes when there is or has been love. Garry will depart shortly for a private cremation. And so when we leave this centre, I hope you find strength and support in your love for one another, and that you find peace in your hearts. And we'll now close with Izzy. And I'm not going to attempt his last name, Over the Rainbow.
All the kings and queens in the Bible, they could not turn back time. So what chance have I of a miracle in this life of mine? I only want one day to unsay the things I said, undo the thing I did. 24 little hours, oh God, please wipe them all away, and I promise I will change. If I could start today again. No, I'm not the milk and honey kind. Today I proved it true. When the red mist falls around my eyes, I know not what I do. Please give me back today, and I won't say the things I said, do that thing I did. Every moment, every hour, the replay's just the same, and I can't stand the shame. Oh, let me start today again.